Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Corombos of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Thanks so much for being here on the Wednesday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. All indications suggest Jim Garrity will return tomorrow, but today, in his place, we're happy to have John Gabriel, the undisputed king of stuff, and he's also an opinion contributor to Discourse Magazine and the Arizona Republic. And, John, it's always great to have you back. Thanks for being here.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. And let's get to it. I cannot wait to dissect three stories and drink three martinis.
This one was kind of expected, but it's no less delicious. There is actually a standard in a deep blue district that will get you fired if you're a member of Congress. You need to conduct yourself really, really horribly, but it can be done. Jamaal Bowman is soon to be a former member of the House of Representatives. And this is the guy who, of course, made headlines last fall when allegedly on his way to a vote on funding the government in a weekend session, he thought that pulling the fire alarm would open a door that was locked. But what he was really doing was trying to postpone the vote because he didn't want that particular bill to pass. Nonetheless, he ended up with, of course, a slap on the wrist because he's a Democrat and it's Washington, D.C. And that wasn't even really the tip of the iceberg, though. He probably could have gotten away with that, but he became one of the most vocal anti-Semites in the House of Representatives, perhaps second only to Rashida Tlaib and Jamaal Bowman as a result of that, in a district once represented by Eliot Engel, mind you, who is Jewish and a very popular member. Jamaal Bowman loses resoundingly to Westchester County, New York executive George Latimer. Latest results suggest it's about a 17-point loss for an incumbent in a deep blue district. So, John, there's a lot more crazies to go, but it's good to see this one headed to the exits.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, it was such a relief. And the polling showed that he was in deep trouble for months. But it's so good to finally see someone lose who really, really, really deserves it. As you say, this is the man turned into a household name by pulling the fire alarm and saying he thought that lever opened the door, which was just a fascinating excuse, I have to say. Of course, he wasn't held responsible, but ultimately voters held him responsible, which is good to say. And also, he has been truly awful when dealing with Israel, Gaza, that whole thing. Very quick to peddle in conspiracy theories that we haven't seen since 1933. Let's just put it that way. So very, very satisfying to see him tossed out on his ear. And not just slightly losing, but among Democrats, losing by just double digits. It's delicious.
You do have the preening section of the Democratic Party, though. So when they see that, for example, Lauren Boebert was renominated, that was not a given, but she won out in Colorado in her new district, mind you. She decided not to run in the one she currently represents because she didn't think she could win the primary. And so the Democratic response is, well, we take care of the problems in our party. Republicans can't say the same. I think there's more than a few Democrats who don't belong on Capitol Hill who are going to sneak through this year. But to watch them smugly posture when most of them either supported Bowman tacitly or didn't get involved in the race is a nice little touch, too.
Yeah, exactly. And if you were on social media at all, we all saw the rally with, about 14 people in attendance with AOC and Jamaal Bowman. Oh my gosh, it was the most embarrassing thing I think I've ever said. It reminds me there's a crazy viral launch of Windows product with Bill Gates and the rest of the nerd squad out there hyping their latest OS release. And, oh man, it was bad, just dancing around the stage and cussing and screaming. And it's like they were hyping a hip-hop act coming on the stage, but there was no hip-hop act. It was just Jamaal Bowman. So good riddance, and I'm glad that AOC, too, put herself out there so publicly just to kind of show the losers that she likes to associate with.
Yeah, clearly the worst public dancing in New York City since Elaine from Seinfeld.
Exactly.
pretty sure. And then that only led up to Jamaal Bowman with an F-bomb rant that I'm sure was extremely convincing to the dozen people in attendance, half of whom were probably his own staffers. So,
exactly.
So it's not like Congress is fixed, but any progress we'll take. And seeing Jamaal Bowman head to probably the MSNBC contributor desk is progress when it comes to Capitol.
He's going to spend many years as a quote-unquote moderate on MSNBC, I'm sure.
That's right. All right, John, on to our bad martini now. And for that, we head over to the U.S. Supreme Court. A number of big cases that we were waiting on for decisions, and there are only a couple of them today, which means tomorrow and Friday are going to be big, since usually the end of the month is the end of the session. The Trump immunity, the obstruction of justice case related to the January 6th arrests and prosecutions and so forth are probably the ones that are going to get the most attention. But another big one that certainly got a lot of attention during oral arguments was decided today, and it went the wrong way. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3, writes James Lynch over at National Review, in favor of the Biden administration in a landmark case dealing with government involvement in social media censorship, finding that the plaintiffs lacked the standing to sue. Justice Amy Coney Barrett wrote the majority opinion, asserting that 2 states and 5 social media users do not have standing to contest the level of coordination between government agencies, nonprofits, and tech platforms in restricting content on social media. The majority opinion reads, quote, "We begin and end with standing. At this stage, neither the individual nor the state plaintiffs have established standing to seek an injunction against any defendant. We therefore lack jurisdiction to reach the merits of the dispute." That's, I guess, the silver lining for the plaintiffs in this case, because, this case could come back in some other form on the merits, but it's going to take a while to do that. In the meantime, the Biden administration gets a technical win here, and government agencies basically sending messages to social media outlets like they did in the 2020 campaign. Oh, that's misinformation. You need to remove that, or you need to stifle that so it doesn't see as much attention by different followers and so forth. And so Sam Alito was the writer of the dissent, and as usual, not pulling any punches. He says what the officials did in this case was more subtle than the ham-handed censorship found to be unconstitutional in Vulo, which is a previous decision, but it was no less coercive. And because of the perpetrators' high positions, it was even more dangerous. It was blatantly unconstitutional, and the country may come to regret the court's failure to say so. If a coercive campaign is carried out with enough sophistication, it may get by. That is not a message this court should send. And so, John, there's a lot of different parts here. Do you have standing? These are generally private entities, and so do they have different rules on their own? And can the government pressure those private entities? But basically, all the stifling of free speech went in the same direction, whether it's the New York Post story on Hunter's laptop, which the federal government now admits is completely legit and so forth. Without Elon Musk right now, this could be a really dangerous time for social media, with the government essentially either finding willing or reluctant partners to police speech how it sees fit.
Yeah, it's very disappointing for anyone who cares about free speech. Jay Bhattacharya of Stanford University was one of the people targeted by the government and silenced. Martin Kulldorff and many other people. We all lived through the craziness of just the government making these silly decisions that didn't make much sense, and if you oppose them in any way, you were verboten. And social media across the board was asked to censor these people as dangerous. Turns out, of course, they were right, but heck, even if they were wrong, they have a right to free speech, and it's very frustrating. It's one of those cases that's frustrating to kind of everybody because it was decided on standing. A lot of people are crowing, saying, hey, this proves the government did nothing wrong, while other people are saying, oh gosh, the government, Supreme Court is fine with suppressing free speech. It is kind of that classic technicality, the side door that the court took to say that, well, we're just not going to say if this is right or wrong what the government did. So it's very frustrating, I think, to everybody, since it was a technicality. It will be entertaining to see Democrats praise this right-wing radical fascist Supreme Court for ruling in favor of big government and Joe Biden. So how that will pan out, we will have to see. I'm sure the people who are most hurt by this are people like Dr. Jay Bhattacharya and others who are good people who are maligned and slandered repeatedly for saying the truth. And being targeted by the government is the most odious part about that.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Koldorf and Bhattacharya and Aaron Kheriaty and all these other plaintiffs, besides the states, this is related to COVID research that they did, and these are well-established scholars, and they were going against the federal narrative on a lot of different aspects of COVID policy, vaccines, and lockdowns, and all sorts of things that they smelled a rat. They did the research. Their research came up with something different than what the government was saying, and the government didn't like that. But like you said, even more significant than that, even if they were wrong, they've got the right to say it. I mean, we have crazy people on social media all the time saying things that aren't true. Of course. Of course, we would never. But yeah, so the protection of free speech is critical. And again, it wasn't on the merits, but by the time this comes back, who knows what the situation with social media will be. So, I
did agree with one part of Barrett's ruling. She included in a footnote that, you know what, I know they changed their name to X officially, but I'm going to keep calling Twitter Twitter. So I hope that is will never be revoked by the Supreme Court, because I just can't get into the whole X thing. No,
it's too weird. And every once in a while, Elon Musk will ask, which name do you prefer? Right. And everybody says Twitter. And apparently he hasn't decided to go back yet. But nonetheless, could have been a really good day for free speech at the Supreme Court. We'll have to wait if it ever comes at all.
Right.
All right, John, on to our crazy martini now. And for this, we head over to the Wisconsin Senate race. Tammy Baldwin is an incumbent Democrat. She is wrapping up her second term. She is seeking a third. She is running against Eric Hovde, who is a longtime entrepreneur. He kind of goes in and rescues businesses. He's had some things to say about the healthcare realm because he's had a lot of experience in that. And one of the things he said, and you'll see it in the Baldwin ad here, is that if you are excessively overweight, that should be reflected in your healthcare premiums. And that might seem a little insensitive, but when you think about other insurance, if you get a lot of tickets, your auto insurance probably is going to go up. If you get in a wreck, in particular if it's your fault, it's going to go up. If you're looking for a life insurance policy and you're a smoker, guess what? It's probably going to go up. And so here's the reaction of Tammy Baldwin and her constituents to Eric Hovde's suggestion.
How much I weigh is nobody's business.
But Eric Hovde wants to make it his.
Eric Hovde thinks that if you're overweight, insurance companies should charge you more.
There should be consequences to those personal choices. Fine, you want to do that? Your health care is going to cost more.
How insulting is that?
Hovde would increase health care costs for 1 out of every 3 people in Wisconsin.
Eric Hovde, what the hell is wrong with this guy?
John, insurance, I thought, was generally based on risk, on how much they charge you monthly. And it's not to say that sometimes they'll try to squeeze a little more out of you necessarily. But what do you make of Tammy Baldwin and her full-figured friends in that ad trying to say that this is unconscionable, beyond the pale, and how dare you?
Yeah, this is a really bizarre ad. I think most people instinctively understand that if you're not as healthy, you're going to pay more for health insurance. Yes, if I was, cooking meth in my basement, I would probably have to pay more on my insurance if the insurance company found out about it. This is common sense, and for Senator Baldwin to attack her opponent based on this is pretty crazy. It could work, though, because voters aren't always the most logical. Obviously, they elected Tammy Baldwin in Wisconsin. And of all states to complain about higher insurance for obesity, Wisconsin is, look, I love you, Wisconsin. I'm a huge Green Bay Packers fan. When I did my family genealogy, I found out one branch of my dad's family, they moved to the Green Bay area originally before going up to the UP of Michigan. So I love you, Wisconsin. You're a great state, but on cheese curds alone, you're going to be paying a bit more when your diet is 95% sausages and cheese and beer. So, yeah, you got to maybe jog a bit, hit the gym every once in a while. I need to do this too. This is not me being judgmental, to say the least. But yeah, an anti-obesity campaign could backfire on the Republican in this case, but it seems really bizarre. As someone who's getting older and could definitely hit the gym a little more than I do, I understand the risk that I might be paying a little bit more in health insurance as well as life insurance. So a very bizarre campaign decision by Tammy Baldwin.
Yeah. Now, the clip of Hovde saying that in the ad shows him sans mustache. And I don't know if you're following Eric Hovde on Twitter, but he just had a real big poll about whether he should keep the mustache or shave it. So that quote is from a while ago. I don't have any reason to believe he doesn't still stand by it. As you were speaking there, John, I looked it up. Wisconsin ranks 11th in obesity, with about 37.7% of the population qualifying for that category as of 2022. So the question is, as commonsensical as it is, given Wisconsin's ranking, do you think this will be an effective ad?
No, I cannot say it's going to be effective because it's just common sense. Yeah, if instead of my boring mid-range vehicle, I had a cherry red Maserati, I'm going to pay more for car insurance. It's just common sense. And also, too, the ad is deceptive in that it's like saying the Republican, well, he thinks people need to pay more and he wants them to pay more. He's just saying they do pay more. And frankly, the government doesn't need to be involved in this decision. It isn't a Senate matter. If you're a person at risk in whatever area, you're going to pay more to insure yourself in that type of insurance.
Well stated. And just for the record, John is not cooking meth in his basement. That happens in New Mexico, not Arizona.
Well, it hasn't been proven. I'll just say that.
Well, the insurance rates go up. We'll know for sure.
Whenever I'm being interviewed for a new job and they say, have you been convicted of a felony? I always say, convicted? No.
Oh, that's fantastic. Fantastic. John, always great to have you with us. Thanks for your time today. We appreciate it.
Great to be on.
John Gabriel, the undisputed king of stuff, and he's an opinion contributor to Discourse Magazine and the Arizona Republic. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please subscribe to the podcast if you don't already and tell your friends about us as well. Thanks also for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch Podcast. Follow us all on Twitter. John is at XJohn, EXJON. Jim is at Jim Garrity. And I am at Dateline_DC. Have a great Wednesday. And join us on Thursday when Jim Garrity returns to the 3 Martini Lunch.